Hello guys, today I want to present to you another new course on Laravel Daily.com. We released a few dozens of courses in 2023, and the last one for this year will be this one, Tailwind CSS for Laravel developers. I saw a real gap in the market and a real need in the market because everyone needs to be full stack developer these days, which means even if you are a core backender like myself, backend developer, you still need to know some JS and some CSS. The level of that depends on the project and the company you work with, but generally Tailwind became kind of a standard for full stack development from the CSS side. And a lot of backenders lack the fundamentals of how Tailwind works, how to configure that, how to troubleshoot if something doesn't work, what are the classes available and stuff like that. So I decided to compile all that fundamental knowledge about Tailwind for those of you who have to work with Tailwind but don't know enough to feel comfortable. So in this video I will read some parts of that course to give you some random tips and tricks and overview of Tailwind in Laravel. And I will link the full course in the description below. And disclaimer, this is not a course about Tailwind 101. This is Tailwind for Laravel developers specifically, from the context of how Tailwind works, and it is compiled in Laravel projects. That's why the very first lesson is about Laravel Breeze, because ironically Laravel Breeze is the fastest way to start with Tailwind in Laravel. Not to install Tailwind from scratch, but Laravel Breeze comes with pre-configured Tailwind, even if you don't Laravel Breeze and even if you will change that design. So if you take a look at the code of Laravel Breeze, it has blade components like X input label, X text input, but also has on top some Tailwind classes like MT2, margin top 2, W full, and others. So how does it all work together? As an experiment, if we change that to MT4 from MT1, you see the margin is bigger, so margin 4 instead of 1. And this is how you manipulate the classes for each input, like for example with margin here. And this is what makes Tailwind convenient to change and experiment with various small attributes like margins and fonts and colors without even going to CSS files, doing that directly in Blade. But also if you start with Laravel Breeze, you may change to margin top 8 and see that it doesn't work. And this is one of the most common problems for Laravel developers. I see questions on Stack Overflow, Laracas, and Twitter. So it doesn't work, and even worse, the MT1 is gone then. There's no margin at all. So why is that? This happens because Tailwind classes are compiled and the resulting app CSS has only the actual classes that are used in the Blade files or in the files that you can configure in the Tailwind configuration. So if you use any new class that hasn't been used before in the project, you need to recompile it into the final CSS. For that, you run npm run dev or npm run build if you're building for production, and then that margin will appear as margin top 8 normally. One of the biggest benefits of such compilation instead of just loading the CSS from CDN is the actual size of the final CSS file, which is 30 kilobytes instead of a few megs if you load the full CSS from CDN. And another lesson from this course that I want to read to you is about Blade components and Laravel helpers with Tailwind, because this is the most often use case you would use. So if we take a look at the text input blade of the Laravel Breeze, it looks like this. So we have input, then disabled or not, and then attributes merge. And then there's a set of Tailwind classes for border, for focus, rounded, and shadow. So these are the default classes that come with that component, but you can add something on top. So if you just put X text input, then all those classes will apply. But if you add something else, like for example X text input class uppercase, or class margin top 1 as we saw above, or class whatever, then the attributes will merge. You can also pass properties not as classes, so this is the topic outside of Tailwind CSS probably, but I will still mention it here on top of disabled false. In addition to that, you may pass more properties to the Blade components, and then the result could be this. And the final thing talking about Blade components is Blade directive called class, which allows you to have conditions. For example, You have this class all the time when you use that component, but these classes only on some conditions. So bold if it's active, and gray if it's not active. So that's how you play around with Tailwind CSS classes applied to elements. This is actually not only in the blade components. You can put that as a blade component, or you can just put that into a blade file and choose Tailwind classes depending on the condition. So yeah, these are just random pieces about Tailwind, how to use that in Laravel projects. Again, the link to the full course will be in the description below. Here on the right hand side, you can see the list of lessons, like how to deploy that to production, what are generally the classes available, how do we build the layouts, and what are the component libraries available on the market. We've listed the most popular ones. Do you have any questions about Tailwind CSS in general in Laravel? Which parts maybe you don't understand or don't understand deeply enough? Shoot in the comments below, and I will try to answer either with separate videos or maybe in the comments if it's short, or maybe we will improve the course itself by adding more lessons or more sections. That's it for this time, and see you guys in other videos.